It was a statue for a century, until man touched it. The plaza had long since stopped being a plaza. Once it had been a place of gathering, a square where merchants sold fabrics that shimmered like fish scales, where storytellers performed songs about constellations, where children drew constellations in the dust and insisted they'd invented them first. Now the stones were cracked, the fountain was dry, and pigeons strutted like they owned the place. In the center, she stood, tall, silent, unblinking, her figure carved with an artistry no one alive could replicate. People called her the Lady of the Plaza. Some swore she was a goddess, others muttered she was a curse, and a few joked she was just the world's most patient tourist. Whatever the truth, her long, tapered ears and impossibly precise features made it clear she wasn't meant to be mistaken for human. Generations had come and gone around her. Scholars scribbled treatises, priests built shrines, then abandoned them when donations dried up. Eventually, even the priests got bored. These days, the lady was mostly a backdrop for gossip, dares, and the occasional drunk serenade, which was exactly the state of affairs when a stranger wandered into town one evening with a notebook stuffed full of maps and curiosity that looked far heavier than the pack slung across his back. He had the gait of someone who tripped on flat ground often enough to make it a lifestyle, and the eyes of a man who thought dust was as fascinating as diamonds. His name was Elias, though he usually avoided introducing himself, because somehow people always misheard it as Alice, and he'd learned that correcting them took longer than just nodding along. He was warned about the statue almost immediately. A boy selling fried breadsticks pointed with oily fingers and whispered, "Don't touch her. My cousin's friend's uncle's goat touched her, and it hasn't bleated the same since." Elias had smiled politely, written goat incident in his notebook, and bought 2 breadsticks. By nightfall, he found himself alone in the plaza, notebook tucked under one arm, half-eaten breadstick in the other, staring up at her. The lady didn't look like a statue carved from stone. She looked like someone holding her breath. Every curve, every fold of her long, flowing garments seemed too alive, too poised, as though she were seconds away from stepping down and asking for directions. Her ears, long, elegant, arched like blades, caught the faintest glimmer of moonlight. "Just stone," Elias muttered, taking a cautious bite of the breadstick. "Really, really good stone." He reached out, mostly to check if the surface felt as warm as it looked, partly because touching old things was his entire career path. He liked to say he was an archaeologist, though his friends insisted professional button presser was closer to the truth. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, the air snapped. Not like thunder, not like fire, more like the entire plaza exhaled after holding its breath for a century. Cracks of light splintered across the lady's form, racing from her feet to her crown in jagged, glowing veins. Elias stumbled back, dropped his breadstick, and blurted, "I was just dusting." The statue shuddered. Fragments sloughed off like brittle eggshells, landing on the plaza stones, with a sound halfway between glass and bone. Beneath the breaking surface, skin glimmered faintly, pale but alive, veins thrumming with a faint glow like starlight caught under flesh. Her chest rose. Her lips parted. She gasped, inhaling a breath that sounded like someone surfacing after drowning for far too long. Her eyes opened, luminous and sharp, staring straight at him. For a long heartbeat, Elias thought she might say something profound, something world-shattering, something worthy of her century-long silence. Instead, she croaked, "Why did you wake me?" Elias blinked, still holding his notebook like a shield. "A curiosity?" Her eyes narrowed. "Curiosity. It's sort of my thing. I touch stuff. Usually nothing explodes." He paused, then added, "Well, not always. There was that one vase in Tel Arin, but long story." The lady, no longer stone, very much alive, staggered forward, her legs trembling as though they'd forgotten how to exist. She glanced down at the fragments of her former prison, muttering in a language he couldn't understand, then steadied herself with a sharp breath. Her long ears flicked, catching sounds Elias couldn't hear. She turned back to him, gaze burning. "You have no idea what you've done." "Story of my life," Elias said, taking a nervous step back. "Usually it involves soup, or doors, or now statues, apparently." Her expression faltered, just for a second, as though the absurdity cracked the weight of her anger. Then she shook her head, muttering, 100 years wasted. 100 years, Elias echoed, his voice too loud in the empty plaza. You've been like this for 100 years? Her eyes locked on him, sharp and unblinking. Tell me, stranger, what year is this? He told her. She stared, silent for so long that he began to wonder if she'd fallen asleep standing. Finally, she gave a sound that might have been a laugh, but it was bitter, jagged, like glass breaking. Everything I knew, she whispered. Gone. You've woken me into ruins. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. On the bright side, we've got airships now. And microwave lasagna. It's not all bad. Her long ears twitched, her glowing eyes narrowing again. Lasagna. Never mind, Elias muttered. Above them, the moonlight dimmed, as though clouds were drawing close. But there were no clouds, just a faint shimmer across the night sky, like ripples in water, spreading outward from the plaza. The lady looked up, dread settling across her face. You fool, she said softly. They will have felt it. Elias froze. They? Who's they? And please don't say ancient cosmic horror, because I have plans tomorrow. The lady gave him a look that suggested ancient cosmic horror was the least of his problems. Then, without warning, she staggered again, reaching for him. Her hand, warm and trembling, gripped his wrist with surprising strength. You touched me, she whispered. That means you're bound. My fate is yours now. Elias opened his mouth, closed it, and then said the only thing that came to mind. Does this mean I get to pick the restaurant? Elias had always assumed that waking up a statue-turned alien would lead to immediate fame, maybe a lecture circuit, or at least free drinks at taverns. What he hadn't expected was to spend the following morning arguing with said alien over breakfast. She sat at his tiny rented table, glaring at the bowl he'd set in front of her. It was instant porridge, the kind that clumped if you looked at it wrong. She poked it with a spoon like it might attack her. This, she declared, is not food. It's breakfast, Elias said. Cheap, fast edible. Usually in that order. She scooped a bite, chewed once, and spat it back into the bowl with regal precision. You attempt to poison me. Elias pinched the bridge of his nose. It's oats. Oats. They're harmless. Her long ears twitched. They taste like wet dust. Wet dust keeps me alive most mornings, Elias muttered, then brightened. All right, fine. I'll get you something better. What do you want? She looked around, baffled by the clutter of his rented room. Half-folded maps, stacks of books, an assortment of gadgets he'd sworn were important but could never remember how to use. Finally, she answered with a simple, meat. Any kind. Cooked. On fire. Elias sighed. Right. Fire meat. Got it. The problem was, he didn't have the coins for meat on fire. What he did have was curiosity, and unfortunately that outweighed his sense of survival most days. As he scrawled notes into his ever-present notebook, she watched him, her expression unreadable. What are you writing? She asked. Details, he said without looking up. First-hand account. Alien woman, formerly statue, hates porridge. Possible link between cosmic imprisonment and disdain for oats. Her ears flicked again. You mock me. Professionally, Elias admitted. Her eyes narrowed, but instead of snapping back, she let out a small, unexpected laugh. It wasn't warm. It was sharp, bitter, the sound of someone who hadn't laughed in a very long time. Still, it was enough to make the hairs on his arms stand up. Then she leaned forward. Tell me, why did you not run when I awoke? Elias blinked. You mean after the glowing cracks and cosmic gasp of doom? Honestly, I tripped on my own notebook. Her glowing eyes softened, though only slightly. Perhaps fate tripped you. Fate's got clumsy hands then, Elias said. Their strange breakfast ended with neither of them satisfied. She abandoned the porridge entirely, and he mourned the loss of perfectly good oats. But before he could gather his thoughts, the lady, who still hadn't offered her name, stood, suddenly tense. They are searching, she said, her voice low. I feel it. Elias looked around. Who's searching? Because the only people who usually look for me are landlords and irritated librarians. Her ears twitched again, sharp alert. Not people. Hunters. Before he could argue, the room shifted. Not physically. The walls were still there, his messy maps still half-slid under the table, but the air itself rippled, humming faintly, as though unseen strings were being plucked. Elias swallowed hard. That's not normal, right? Her jaw tightened. When you touched me, the cocoon broke. The seal shattered. My release was not quiet. Elias scribbled nervously in his notebook. Statue awakening sends out cosmic distress signal. Hunters inbound. Recommend moving city immediately. Then he looked up. So, are these hunters the good kind of hunters, like people hunting for rare spices? Or the bad kind, like the kind that unmake worlds? Ah, Elias said faintly. So not spice merchants. Her hands balled into fists. We must leave. Now. He hesitated. Leave? As in the city? The planet? Please specify the unit of panic here. The planet. Elias stared, then scribbled in his notebook again. Immediate evacuation recommended. Probably pack snacks. They didn't make it far before trouble found them. The plaza they crossed was strangely empty for midday. The market stalls abandoned. Carts tipped over as though people had fled mid-transaction. Elias muttered, Great, now even the breadstick boy's gone. Just before the sky flickered. Above them, shapes shimmered, too sharp, too precise to be clouds, shifting in angles that made his eyes ache to follow. A low hum rolled through the air. The lady grabbed his wrist, dragging him under the cover of a broken archway. They are close, she whispered. Elias peeked upward, heart pounding. Okay, so question. Do you have, like a ship? Or a teleporting rock? Or maybe a giant cosmic horse we can ride away on? Her glare could have cut glass. Do I look like someone who keeps a horse in her pocket? Elias opened his mouth, then shut it again. Fair point. The hum grew louder. Elias pressed himself against the archway, trying to steady his breathing. His brain screamed at him to panic, but his mouth betrayed him with, So, is this a bad time to ask your name? She blinked at him, startled. For a moment, the dread faltered. Then she said quietly, Serena. Serena, he repeated, trying the sound. Nice to meet you. I'm Elias, and if we survive the next 10 minutes, I'll buy you all the fire meat you want. Her long ears twitched again. Then, despite everything, she smiled, the smallest, sharpest smile he'd ever seen. Then we survive, she said. The sky split open. The sky's opening wasn't thunder, or lightning, or anything Elias could file neatly into the normal things that happen above your head category. It was geometry, shapes folding out of nothing, triangles cutting across the clouds, cubes blooming open and inside out like some demented child's toy. The air thrummed like an enormous harp string, rattling teeth and rattling nerves. Elias pressed himself tighter against the archway, clutching his notebook like it might double as a shield. Okay, I know this looks bad, but maybe it's just, weather. Weird interdimensional weather. Happens all the time, right? Serena didn't even look at him. Her eyes glowed brighter, her long ears angled toward the sky like antennas, and her voice dropped low. They found us. Elias scribbled quickly. Note, alien woman can detect space geometry with ears. Practical application, satellite replacement. Elias, Serena snapped. Yes, present, very much panicking. We move. They dashed across the empty plaza. The humming above followed, shadows stretching sharper with every step. Elias tried to keep up, but his legs weren't built for sprinting beside century-old aliens, who'd apparently retained their fitness, while petrified. Wait, how are you not winded? He gasped. I slept for 100 years, Serena shot back. I am well rested. They burst into a side alley, weaving through narrow turns until they reached what looked to Elias like a collapsed shed. Serena shoved aside debris, revealing a hatch sunk into the ground. You've had a spaceship under the plaza this whole time. Elias wheezed. A vessel, Serena corrected. Not entirely functional, but enough. Enough to what? Fly us off the planet? or enough to explode spectacularly when I sneeze near it. She ignored him, pulling the hatch open. The air below smelled faintly metallic, humming with energy that had slept almost as long as she had. Elias followed, muttering about tetanus and regretting his career choices. Inside, the vessel's chamber glowed faintly, walls alive with veins of light that pulsed in time with Serenia's touch. She pressed her palm to a panel, and the vessel answered with a rising hum, lights flickering awake like groggy eyes. Elias stumbled forward, gaping. This is incredible. Do you realize how many dissertations I could write about this? Elias the Magnificent, the man who accidentally awoke both statue and spaceship. I'd get funding for life. Serenia didn't smile. She slid into a curved seat, gesturing to the one beside it. Sit. Elias hesitated. Do I need a license for this? Sit, or you will die standing. That's a persuasive argument, Elias said, dropping into the seat. The vessel shook as something scraped across the hatch above. A distorted screech echoed down the shaft. Elias clutched the armrests. Right so, no pressure. But do you maybe have a button labeled "Go very fast"? Serenia's fingers flew across the controls, glyphs sparking under her touch. The vessel roared to life, and Elias yelped as they were yanked upward, phasing straight through solid rock in a shimmer of bending light. The city vanished beneath them. The night sky opened around them, no longer filled with comforting stars, but crawling with those impossible shapes. Ships that weren't ships, folding angles that shouldn't exist. They are here for me, Serenia said quietly. Elias swallowed. Not me. Just you. Because, look, I could, hide. I'm great at hiding. Very average face. I blend. You touched me. The bond is sealed. They will come for you as well. Of course they will. Elias groaned. Why wouldn't they? One of the alien craft shifted toward them, a prism-like structure tilting in ways that made Elias's brain twitch. Energy flared along its surface. Serenia slammed her hand against a control, and their vessel dove sharply. Elias screamed, clutching the armrest. I thought you said this thing wasn't entirely functional. It flies. That's debatable. The enemy craft fired. Light streaked past, searing the air with a crack that shook their vessel. Elias flinched. Do we shoot back? Please tell me we can shoot back. Serenia hesitated, her glow flickering faintly. Weapons are limited. Limited like one shot, or limited like a rubber band in some strong language? She didn't answer. Instead, she twisted the vessel into a dive, slipping between the geometric monstrosities. Weaving so close Elias was certain the laws of physics were filing complaints. The entire time, Serenia's face was carved from steel, but he noticed the glow in her skin dimming each time she touched the controls. Finally, the vessel broke free of the cluster. Silence settled for a breathless moment. Elias slumped in his seat, heart hammering. Okay, that was fine. Totally fine. Haven't screamed that much since I lost a bet and had to ride an angry donkey. But you know. Fine. Serenia's hands shook as she pulled them away from the panel. The glow in her veins flickered again, dimmer than before. Elias frowned. Hey, are you all right? She didn't answer right away. Finally, she said, The stone preserved me, but breaking free has cost me more than I expected. You mean you're running out of juice? Her expression was unreadable. Every moment I live again, the price grows. Elias stared, then blurted, You couldn't have mentioned that before we hijacked your interdimensional panic machine? For the first time since awakening, her mouth curved into something almost like a smirk. Would you have left me in stone? Elias opened his mouth, then shut it. Okay, fair. Probably not. I have a thing about unfinished puzzles. Silence stretched between them. Outside, stars drifted, innocent, oblivious to the chaos. Elias rubbed his temples. All right, let's say, hypothetically, we don't want to be obliterated by cosmic origami hunters. What's the plan? Serenia leaned back, eyes closing, voice quiet. We find my people, if any remain. Elias scribbled into his notebook. Mission objective, locate long-lost alien civilization. Secondary objective, survive. Then he looked at her, at the dimming glow in her veins, at the long ears twitching faintly. "Right," he said softly. "No pressure." The vessel drifted in darkness, humming faintly as though it resented being woken from a century-long nap. Elias tapped one of the glowing panels, earning a sharp glare from Serena. "Don't touch that," she warned. "I was just seeing if it worked like a lamp," Elias muttered. "Besides, you've got way too many buttons. Half of these look like they'd order coffee. The other half look like they'd blow up the moon." "Some do both," she said flatly. Elias immediately pulled his hands into his lap. Noted. No moon coffee. They had slipped beyond the reach of the first wave of hunters, but the silence that followed wasn't comforting. The stars stretched endlessly, cold and distant, and the vessel's hum was the only sound keeping Elias tethered to the idea that they were still moving forward, not just floating hopelessly in infinite night. Serena sat with her hands on the controls, but he noticed she touched them less often now, as though conserving her strength. "So," Elias began, mostly to fill the silence, "tell me about your people. Where are we heading? Big cities? Star palaces? Do I need to practice bowing?" Her ears twitched faintly. "If they still live, they will not be in palaces. They will be hidden, scattered across the void. Survivors." "That's less glamorous than I pictured," Elias admitted. "But hey, survivors are good. Survivors throw great parties." She gave him a long look, one that made him shift uncomfortably in his seat. "You jest too much. It's either that or scream," Elias said. "And trust me, screaming gets repetitive." The vessel beeped suddenly, a series of sharp pulses that made Serena tense. Elias glanced at the display. "What's that?" "Please tell me it means dinner's ready." "Pursuers," she said simply. Elias groaned. "Of course it does. Why would it mean anything else? Dinner, no. Safety, no. Cosmic Origami Death Squad? Always." The screen flickered with shapes forming in the distance, those impossible geometric crafts, shimmering as though they existed half in this universe and half outside of it. Serena tightened her grip on the controls. "They will not stop." Elias swallowed. "Then maybe we make them stop? You know, like shoot at them? With weapons. Please tell me we have weapons." Her hesitation was answer enough. The glow in her skin pulsed faintly, weaker than before. "The vessel's defenses are tied to me. Each strike I call drains my strength." Elias blinked. "So every time you shoot, you dim?" "Yes." "Fantastic," Elias muttered. "Love a good lose-lose situation." "All right. Fine. Let me think." He pressed his palms to his temples. "Think, Elias, think. You once solved a 3-hour standoff with a goat using only a bucket of paint and a fishing net. This can't be harder." Serena stared. "I am almost afraid to ask how." "Don't. It involved a lot of screaming." The geometric ships drew closer. The vessel shuddered as energy flared around them, a warning shot that set Elias's teeth on edge. He gritted his teeth. "Okay, all right. You said they're hunters, right? Hunters chase things. What if we give them something to chase?" Serena's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Elias gestured wildly. "Fake signal. Decoy. I've read about this. Somewhere. Probably. We make them think we're zipping one way while we're actually sipping tea in the other direction." She considered, then slowly nodded. "The vessel can project echoes, but you cannot operate it." "I've pressed buttons before." Elias protested. "You pressed one and nearly vented the air." "Details." She sighed, leaned forward, and tapped a sequence into the console. Lights shimmered around them, scattering like shards of glass. Elias watched, fascinated, as ghostly versions of their vessel broke away, darting into different directions across the starfield. The hunters immediately shifted, splitting into groups to chase the illusions. The real vessel veered sharply, slipping into the darkness, while the echoes danced like bait. Elias grinned. "Huh. It worked. I told you it would work. I'm a genius." "Do not celebrate yet," Serena said, but her lips twitched faintly, almost as if she were holding back a smile. They drifted silently for a while longer, hidden in the void. Elias leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. "So, How long do you think before they realize they're chasing space holograms? Not long, she admitted, but it has bought us time. Good, Elias sighed. Time is good. Time means maybe I won't die before lunch. He glanced at her again, noticing the way her glow flickered faintly, weaker still. Worry tugged at him, though he tried to cover it with another joke. You're not allowed to die before lunch either. I promised you fire meat. Can't back out now. Serena's eyes softened, though her voice remained steady. You are strange, Elias. I get that a lot. She leaned back in her seat, exhaustion tugging at her posture. The vessel hummed quietly, carrying them deeper into the dark. For now, they were safe, but Elias couldn't shake the feeling that every laugh, every joke, every breath they bought was building toward a cost he didn't yet understand. Still, he forced a grin, looking out at the endless stars. All right, universe. Throw what you want. We've got decoys, jokes, and maybe, just maybe a plan. The vessel hummed in agreement. Somewhere behind them, the hunters screamed through the void, fooled but not forever. Elias had once promised himself that if he ever wound up in space, he would handle it with dignity. He imagined heroic poses, dramatic speeches, maybe even a cape. Instead, he was hunched over a console, frantically scribbling equations that weren't equations into his notebook, while muttering, "Please work, please work, please work," like a desperate gambler at a broken slot machine. Serena leaned heavily against her chair, her glow reduced to the faintest shimmer. "They are closing in again," she said, her voice strained. "I noticed," Elias shot back. "They've been following us for 3 days, which, for the record, is more persistent than my landlord. And that man once knocked on my door during a hailstorm." Another ripple of impossible geometry unfolded across the dark, hunters sliding into position around them. Serena reached toward the weapon panel, but Elias caught her hand before she touched it. "No," he said. "You can't keep burning yourself out like this. They will destroy us. Not if I get there first." She blinked at him, startled. For once, Elias didn't make a joke. He set down his notebook, flipped it to the page where he had been furiously sketching, and pointed. "You told me this ship echoes signals, right? Projects illusions? Well, what if instead of making copies of us, we make copies of them? Trick them into fighting themselves?" Serena's eyes widened, then narrowed thoughtfully. "It is possible, but dangerous. One wrong sequence, and the illusions collapse." "Story of my life," Elias muttered. "One wrong sequence, everything collapses. But I think I can do it. I've been watching you." Her long ears twitched faintly. "You cannot operate the vessel." "I can learn," Elias said firmly. "I've touched cursed statues, I've survived angry donkeys, and once I even got through a wedding toast without fainting. I can do this." She studied him, then slowly released the panel. "Very well. Try." Elias cracked his knuckles, then immediately regretted it when one finger popped painfully. He leaned over the console, mimicking the patterns he'd seen her trace, adjusting by instinct more than understanding. The vessel responded reluctantly, glyphs flickering uncertainly under his hand. Outside, light fractured. Copies of the hunters shimmered into existence, dozens of them, sharp-edged and glimmering. The real hunters hesitated, their perfect geometry colliding with the confusion of their own reflections. Elias grinned wildly. "Yes, look at that. I just invented cosmic gaslighting." Serena arched a brow. "Cosmic what?" "Never mind. Point is, it's working." The hunters faltered, firing upon their own echoes. The void erupted with impossible angles, tearing into impossible angles, the predators devouring their reflections. Serena managed a tired but genuine laugh, the sound catching Elias off guard. But as the false fleet consumed itself, the strain on the vessel surged. Alarms shrieked, lights flickered, and Elias felt the heat searing through the console. Okay, maybe too much gaslighting. Dialing it back." Serena placed her hand over his, steadying him. Together, their hands moved in tandem, balancing the projection until the hunters were locked in battle with phantoms, blind to the real vessel slipping away. Silence followed, broken only by the ship's labored hum. The hunters dwindled into the dark, chasing shadows. Elias slumped back, panting. I can't believe that worked. You learned, Serena said softly. Clumsy, reckless, but you learned. Elias gave her a crooked smile. High praise, coming from someone who called me strange every 5 minutes. Her glow flickered again, dimming dangerously. He reached out, alarmed. Hey, don't do that. Stay with me. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them, gaze softer than he had ever seen. I feared I would waken to ruins. I did not expect this. What, a panicked human with bad porridge? A companion, she said simply. Elias blinked, caught off guard. He swallowed hard, then forced a shaky grin. Well, you're stuck with me now. Bonded, remember? You, me, cosmic origami nightmares. It's a package deal. Her ears twitched faintly, and for the first time, her smile was unguarded. Then perhaps ruin is not so terrible. The vessel drifted into safer space, stars stretching endless and unthreatening for once. Elias leaned back, letting the tension ease from his shoulders. He thought about who he had been just days ago. A man chasing curiosities, always running from place to place, never staying long enough to matter. Now he had touched stone and woken life, fought impossible hunters, learned to pilot an alien vessel, and, most importantly, found someone who made all the running finally mean something. He closed his notebook slowly, the last scribble reading. Survived. Not alone anymore. Where to now? He asked. Serena looked ahead, eyes steady despite her exhaustion. We find my people. If they remain, we join them. If not, we make something new. Elias nodded. New sounds good. Maybe less porridge this time. She gave him a look equal parts stern and amused. Definitely less porridge. The vessel surged forward, vanishing into the stars. Behind them, the hunters fought shadows that would never end. Ahead of them stretched possibility, uncertain, dangerous, but theirs. Elias reached for his notebook again, then hesitated, smiling faintly. For once, he didn't need to write it down. This part, he would remember. The end.